Me the Horizon have always been a divisive band. Even from the beginning, they've always kind of been on the kind of crust of that, what do you want to call it, scene-core, metalcore outbreak that happened within the late 2000s, around 2006, 2007. In that era, they were kind of the kings of that genre and of that scene. Their first album was a fairly, I would call it, accessible deathcore album, featured a lot of tongue-in-cheek lyricism. Their follow-up album to that, Suicide Seasons, was kind of, I would say it was a bit of a step back. A lot of people love that album. It's a lot of people's favorite albums. It is a little bit goofy, especially to listen to it now. The follow-up to that, I wasn't necessarily a fan of either. It felt more like a refinement of Suicide Seasons. I think they really hit their stride with Sempiternal, which I felt like was them pushing themselves lyrically and musically, and there was a lot going on there. They pivoted with their last album, That's the Spirit, into more pop territories, and I think that set a lot of fans off, especially with the direction that Sempiternal was going and how good that album was. That's the Spirit was a bit of a change in direction, especially musically. It wasn't as heavy, it wasn't as hard, it wasn't as aggressive, but overall, I really enjoyed that album. I felt like they're pushing to more pop territory, alternative pop, power pop, whatever you want to call it, power rock, hard rock. I think was a right move for them. I think that it helped them kind of explore their talents. I think that Ollie Sykes' voice has gotten way better over time. Some of the songs on there are my favorite songs from the band. And now they've come out with a new album called Ammo. And if you were hoping that they kind of go back to the sound of Sempiternal or Suicide Seasons or any of that, then this is a strong message from the band that there is no turning back, that they are going full force forward. And to me, that's great. That's appealing. I feel like they've always kind of been on that crust of pop music. They've always been a more accessible band in terms of their, I mean, they've been heavy, but they've always been a more accessible heavy than I would say other bands have. And I think that this is kind of just the right direction for them and the smart thing for them to do, and it's resulted in probably one of the best albums that they've released. Now, I know if you're especially an older fan of Bring Me the Horizon, you're probably looking for that comment bar right now. Tell me how wrong I am, and tell me how bad this album is, how much it sucks, how much it's not like their old stuff, and that's why you hate it. However, hear me out on this, because I think that people are going about it all wrong. Bands change over time as they get older, as they want to explore new territories, and I think this is Bring Me the Horizon doing the same, doing that. And there's even a song on here called Heavy Metal, which basically directly addresses that, how old fans are saying that they suck now because they're not heavy metal or and any of that, and it's quite literally addressing that, and it's kind of funny to me that they decided to include it, because it's basically at this point burning that bridge. There's no going back for them. I mean, who knows, maybe we'll see a return to form for them at some point. I don't really care either way, because I feel like the last two albums have been so strong. Last album being That Spirit, this being Ammo. They've definitely worked more of the modern day electronic work and pop in here. We've got some trap beats on here. For instance, Why You Gotta Kick Me When I'm Down is kind of a nice embrace of that. You've got more kind of house beats on here that you'd expect from things like dubstep. It's kind of a melding of genres, and there's still enough kind of hard rock on here, I think, for me personally, to get involved in and to not quite consider it a full pop album. The song, the first song they released, Mantra, I think is a pretty powerful song in general. I think the other song they released, so It's a Wonderful Life, as another example of kind of heavier tracks. I kind of hesitate to use that word, but probably the best way to describe it. Songs like Nihilist Blues featuring Grimes are a full embrace of the pop music, as well as, I would say, In the Dark. And I've criticized bands for doing this before, going from metal or rock to switching to pop music. And generally speaking, it's because a lot of times when that happens, the songs end up feeling very simplistic. There's no experimentation. There's no, it doesn't feel like they're pushing themselves. It feels like a lot of the songs were written to be straightforward pop songs, and why does the band even exist? But I think here, while there is some of that, which I'll get to, I think a lot of these songs are still strong enough. I think that they kind of embrace the rock mentality and do manage to kind of get that energy out there. There's still some kind of funny songs like Sugar, Honey, Ice, and Tea, which you can spell it out. It's just kind of, again, it's the band just being goofy, and it's something that I've kind of liked. There's some almost full electronic songs on here, like Fresh Bruises, for instance, or Ouch. They're weird, which is why I like them. They don't feel like they're not necessarily songs that are going to be heard on the radio. There are some songs on here I feel like could probably be played, especially on some like alternative rock stations that have definitely embraced pop music before. But I just think that a lot of these songs manage to stand out and are pretty strong on their own. One of the issues with this album, and where I can see some criticism and where I can see some problems here, definitely go back to the blandness of some of the songs. And I would say the biggest culprit here is the lyrics. Sempiternal dealt with some very heavy issues, particularly with religion. And it feels like there's some of that here, for instance, the song Mantra, but it's kind of sanitized in a lot of ways. It doesn't feel like it's as aggressive as they've been in the past. A lot of the lyrics feel like they're simplistic for a reason. And I mean, they've never really been a band that's been about super deep, meaningful lyrics. But that was something that they explored with Sempiternal that I gravitated towards on that album, that I felt like was still there with That's the Spirit, which I feel like on this album isn't necessarily the strongest point, and I think that's where some of the songs kind of fall apart or don't really last over time. So that's one of the main issues with this album. I mean, aside from the obvious, as I've mentioned before, if you are a fan of their previous music, this isn't the album for you. This is their new direction. Love it, hate it, whatever. This is where they're going, and they are not turning back. It's a mixed bag overall, I would say. Personally, I'm enjoying Ammo. I love it. I think that this was the right call for them. It's very accessible. It's enjoyable. I think that it's got a lot of strong moments vocally, a lot of strong moments instrumentally. I feel like these songs were written to be performed by a band, and while a lot of that gets lost on the album, hearing some of these songs live, you really kind of get a sense of everybody was included on the tracks, which is unfortunate because obviously you don't have a live album here. You have a recorded, produced, and polished album, but it still feels like it comes through on most of these tracks. I still think that a lot of it feels like it was written for a rock band, but its one downfall, as I mentioned, is in the lyrics, where it just feels a bit simplistic. It feels like a lot of the lyrics were written simply to be catchy, to just kind of be something you can sing along to, and something that would just kind of stay stuck in your ear, choruses, things like that, hooks. But I don't think it necessarily ruins the album in any way. It's one thing that I can understand people not liking or enjoying, or why they feel like this may not be the best representation of Bring Me the Horizon. But the thing is, the band still exists. The songs that they wrote in the past still exist. And obviously you want to hear the songs or the style of music that you enjoyed and why you got into the band played by the band later on in their career, when they've gotten better, they've gotten more comfortable with things. But bands change over time. It happens. And it's kind of one of those things where enjoy what's in the past. And if you're not liking what they're doing now, that's fine. Doesn't mean that the band's bad. It doesn't mean that they fell off. It just means that you don't enjoy the music that they're making now. That said, Ammo, I think, is a worthy listen to for anybody who likes kind of dark pop, alternative pop, power pop. I keep using the word pop because that's where it's going. I wouldn't say it fully embraced. It's definitely not, mainstream rock or mainstream pop radio friendly, but it's more accessible. It's enjoyable. It still hits hard enough to kind of borderline on the rock side of things. There's a definite sense of experimentation on here. And I think that it is an album that really does manage to hold up over time. Thank you so much for watching the review of Bring Me the Horizon's Ammo. If you haven't already hit the comment button, please do. I want to hear from you, whether you're going to tell me how wrong I am and how much that this album sucks, or how much you like their new direction and what they're doing with things. I always enjoy hearing your opinions on things, so let me know down below. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel for more. Metalloud is back for a while. We'll be making more videos, so make sure you are up to date with everything, and follow me on social media to keep up to date. On Twitter at Metalloud, on Facebook, facebook.com/Metalloud, as well as on Instagram at Metal_Loud.